Yo, what is going on, homies? It's your boy Stumped back for another Optc video, and in today's video, we're hopping into some more Pirate Rumble, showcasing all of the color variations that are available as of July 2021 over here on Optc Global. So, in today's video, I have two fights for you guys, basically showcasing all of the different colors and all the different color teams that sort of work and what units work well on them. We're going to talk about some replacements on the teams and just sort of talk about how they function, where they're good, where they're bad, and all that sort of stuff. But if you guys are enjoying the OPTC content, make sure to go down there and belt the like button for me if you're new to the channel. Hit that big red subscribe button as well. And if you want to support your boy even more, hit that juicy join button to become a member. We do have emotes. We do have badges now available thanks to my boy Krooby. So if you do want to support your boy even more, it's not expected but greatly appreciated. Hit that juicy join button today. But before we hop in, let's take a quick look at what we're working with over on JP. So over on JP, this is basically what the meta looks like again as of July or early July 2021. So the the strength team sort of resides around the Super Tight Kid, the anniversary units. So the anniversary legends are all very, very good in Rumble. You've got Kid, you've got the new Verse Ace, which has just released on Global. We've got Jack. Jack's a fantastic option for the Strength unit. Rare Recruit Jozo is actually really, really good. He's really, really good for defensive teams if you're using Strength. Then you've got the Rumble Law, who's just a phenomenal Rumble unit. You've also got options like Sweet Generals and Karku, which are very, very good options. Whitebeard is a fantastic unit, which you will see today in today's video. And then you've also got the Rumble Cracker. Moving on to decks now, you've got Anniversary Law. We've got Kid, who's fantastic. Rayleigh is incredible. The Rare Recruit Frankie's a really good shout, as well as the Rumble Cavendish and Sobermask, obviously being a nuker, as well as Zoro being a nuker in the back as well. So that's sort of like your main lineup, what you want it to look like, or that's what JP is working with. Plus the few other different options you've got is like Blackbeard and Corazon, who's amazing for nerfing particular teams. On to Quick, which is arguably the best team on both Global and JP at the moment, but the lineup just is insane. You've got the new Super Type Luffy, you've got Versa Kainu, Kaido, Magellan, and Pirate Rumble Shiryu. Now, the combination of Magellan and Luffy, I actually run this team on JP, is just absolutely incredible. The haste, giving each other haste is just so damn strong. Then you've got Queen and Rumble Wipe in the back, and you've got a whole bunch of options like Stussy, Cracker, Nami, Ivankov. You've also got Bellamy for this particular team, who's a free-to-play unit. You got the free-to-play King, and then obviously with the new Legend King and the Legend Queen, I feel like they'll probably slide in on the Dex and the Quick teams. Moving on to Sai, I'm actually running this a little bit on JP as well. Hopefully my boy Rumble Scratch comes out with some videos. I did send him some gameplay, but I love this team. I don't actually use Shirahoshi, I use the new Gaban. And then I can run sort of an 8-man team. You've also got options of Germa66, who have their Super Evolution, makes them very, very good. The new Pirate Rumble Gaban is excellent for this particular team. Verse Shanks is a weapon. You guys know how amazing Roger is. And then obviously the combination of Enel and Rebecca Toy Soldier is fantastic. Then you've also got this Germa Sanji. He works very similar to the Dex Sobermask. He's just great at nuking in the last 30 seconds. On to Int now. Verse Whitebeard's incredible. You've got Moria. You've got Dofi, who's just an absolute weapon for slashes and driven units. The Rare Recruit Enel, Komurasaki, verse Big Mom. And then your backline units are insane. You've got Julie Bonnie. You've got Halloween Law. The Rumble Jozo and Smoko are great as well. The final team is the Rainbow team. Now, I didn't include a Rainbow team in today's video just because the Rainbow team has so many options. But as you can kind of see here, it's sort of built around cerebral-based characters. Sanji Pudding, Neko, Vivi Rebecca, Shanks Crew, and Shirashari all being cerebral-based units, but then obviously Luffy, Sanji, and Beej aren't. But Ace Sabo is just insanely good in Rumble as well. So that's what Japan's working with, and I have sort of used this as a little bit of a guide for today's video. But as I mentioned, I do have two teams for you guys to each color comp. And hopefully it gives you an idea of what you guys have and what units are good on those teams if you do want to test some teams out. So with that said, let's hop into some content. So for the first color, we're going to talk about Strength. Now, these are in no particular order. I will talk about who I think is sort of like the best team at the end. But when it comes to Rumble, there's basically a counter for every single team. And with this particular team, Versa Kainu is just its biggest weakness. Versa Kainu just absolutely destroys Strength. But this particular setup is very slasher orientated. It does rely on Rumble Law, Sweet Generals, Kaku, and Odin as your main slashes, and then you've got Ace as kind of like your glue. Ace is a really, really good rumble unit as well. Then you've got Sanji in the back, as well as just any good bench units like Whitebeard. And because I was running, this team relies on a lot of Pyre Rumble units, I do have Super Type Zoro in the back. I do know he's not a strength unit, obviously, but he just works amazingly if you have the cost in the back. But you can easily replace him with another nuker like Rare Recruit Enel. You can use the King unit, the Quick King. Obviously, you've got Whitebeard, Colgar, and all those characters that work really, really well in the final stages. The other strength team I have for you guys is a little bit different. And shout out to my boy Jin-san in the Discord. Head over to our Discord if you guys have any questions about Rumble. Jin's an absolute weapon. Such a legend. So if you're watching this video, Jin, I appreciate the hell out of you. And thanks so much for the team comp. So this team relies on Jack. As you guys saw, Jack's an amazing Rumble unit. He's very defensive orientated, a lot of HP. And then again, we've got Sanji in the front lines as well as Law and Ace. But we've also got V1 Whitebeard. As mentioned, V1 Whitebeard is incredible. He can do like a 50% HP card on quite a low cooldown, which is really, really nice. And then in the back, we've got Kaku. Kaido's just, again, we have enough room to put on another legend. So we decided to use Kaido here. But Super Type Zoro is another really good option as well. And then Colgar and Olin, they're just a place filter just to fill out the 8-man team. So this is the strength team. Let's hop into some fights now. Like I said, I do have 2 fights for each color variation, 1 fight for each. And let's hop in. Alright, so for the first fight, we're taking on a Mono Dex team. Now, this Mono Dex team, it's not perfect, but it's a pretty good team. Now, Dex is great for defending, so I just really wanted to see how Strength went. And honestly, I undersold Strength heavily. At the moment, Strength is actually pretty decent. It is going to drop off once we get some of those new crazy Int legends. But at the moment, I would actually put it above Int. Some of the stuff that it can do is actually insane. Especially once you get these slashes all working together. You got a lot of synergy with Odin giving a lot of cooldowns. And you have a lot of extra attack with Sweet Generals. Kaku's great is just just an absolute massive damage dealer. He has quite a low cooldown as well. And he lowers defense as well for Dex units. So this is a big reason why I wanted to actually fight a Dex team. Because Kaku just works so well in the front. The strength team actually works really, really well against the Dex and the Int team, especially I found that I had the most success against those particular teams. However, it does still struggle against your slashes. Obviously, against a Kainu, it gets absolutely bodied. And against Sai, this team, my particular slasher variation, will actually struggle, obviously, because Enel has very, very good nuking capabilities against slashers. So as you can see, we managed to tank most of the specials. We managed to take out Rayleigh early. We take out Blackbeard fairly early as well. And once we've got our Pyre Rumble Law coming in doing a lot of damage, it's basically GG. Odin just does so much goddamn damage and can actually just take out so many units, as well as Ace doing such significant damage that even if we do get to the back end of this fight, we still have Zoro coming in with all of his damage. But if Zoro can come in with Odin still alive and getting all those buffs from Odin and whatnot, he manages to just clean up so well. But that was strength against Dex. It works very, very well against Dex. I haven't found too many issues. Even fighting with Zoro in the back while I was testing this team, it worked. It worked really, really well. But that was strength versus Dex. Let's move on to the next strength team now. Alright, so once again, shout out to my boy Jin for putting this particular team together. And we're coming up against an Int team. Now, this particular Int team is actually fairly leveled. And was actually pretty good. Now, obviously, I'm not exactly super high in the blocks at the moment. So, we're not versing exactly the creme de la creme of the competition. But I sort of just wanted to show off what your stats look like and what synergy these particular teams have. So, with Sanji in the front, as well as Whitebeard and Jack, we do have a lot of HP. We have 10 HP. We've got quite a lot of attack on Ace as well, with 15 attack, as well as on our Law unit, which works really well. And if you can actually get Jack to pop off in that first 30 seconds and then follow it up by Whitebeard with all that HP cuts, then you get Sanji coming in with Ace and Law, and you just manage to do so much damage output that the HP cuts bring most teams so damn low. And then with the amount of damage output that those nukers have, it just works so well. So once again, shout out to Jin for the team comp. I have seen screenshots of him taking down the Quick team with a little bit of good RNG, and also taking down the Sai team as well. It's not exactly foolproof against those teams, but as I mentioned, I definitely undersold strength. It's a lot better than I thought it was, and it can actually put up a fight against some of the higher end teams, and manages to take out both Int and Dex. So I would put it around the middle, probably still a bit lower than something like Sai or Quick. But let's move on to another color now. Alright, so moving on to Dex now, and as I mentioned, I'm sort of just going through these as the colors. This is in no particular order, but I do think that Dex is probably the weakest. I did think Strength was the weakest, but like I said, I was kind of blown away by Strength, but I do think Dex is probably the weakest in terms of attack, mainly because you're relying on Zoro and a little bit of RNG. But as a defensive team, it works absolute wonders, mainly because it has so much defense and manages to tank so well. So this is the first particular team I have. Kid is just a phenomenal Rumble unit. He's got a great passive for Dex and a great special. Rayleigh has a terrific passive. You do want to put him in the middle if you are running Dex. That way you can get his guard and his defense up, provided he takes a bunch of hits. Cavendish is just absolute weapon. And then you have a couple of really good options, free-to-play options. We've got the Rumble Bardo on this team, as well as Treasure Map Komurasaki. Then we've obviously got Zoro in the back. Zoro is basically your big damage dealer for this particular setup. And you do want him sort of coming in around that 50-second mark so he can start doing all of that damage, as well as Sober Mask. When he comes in with the last 40 seconds, he can output a lot of damage as well. The other team comp I have is very, very similar, but it is using Corazon. Now, if you guys are looking at taking on something like Quick with this particular team, you do want to have Corazon on the team, as he's very, very good at nerfing. If you guys are looking for some other really, really good defensive options for this particular team, you do have some other options like Hawkins. The Super type Hawkins is actually really, really good defensively. He has like a auto target or a provoke sort of ability. But you also have characters like Magellan. Magellan's another really, really good option, as he does damage over time. Not that Magellan, this Magellan. He does damage over time, and he's really, really good at nerfing quick enemies as well. So if you're looking at taking down the quick team, the Dex team's usually the way to go, because they have Corazon. You can even slap on Law in most cases as well, and it tends to work fairly well. The combination of Magellan as well as Pirate Rumble Frankie. I do have Pirate Rumble Frankie on this particular team, mainly just so that way I could run an 8-man team. But as mentioned, you can easily drop Law from the team and run something like Bardo, or you can run something like Komurasaki. But the big downside I did find to this particular team when testing, especially in an attacking sense, is it's so damn stally, and at some points you can get like 26, 27 defense. The enemy just cannot kill you. The problem with that is you can't get Zoro coming in to do all of his damage, and it really sort of hinders how this team functions for an attacking team. But nevertheless, it is still fairly solid, and you guys are about to see that in the fight. So let's hop into those. Alright, so onto the first fight, and we are using the Corazon comp as well as using Rumble Frankie, but you can easily like mix around with Rumble Frankie, take him off, put on Treasure Map Komurasaki, or put on something like Rumble Bardo if you're looking for some more defense. But I did manage to find a quick team, and it was actually a fairly scary looking quick team. It's got all of the big names on it. It's got Kuzan, it's got Tessero, you've got Kaido, and you've got a Kainu. It's got a lot going for it, as well as Queen in the back. And this was a really good showing. But as I mentioned, like I was versing a lot of quick teams, and I never actually lost against the quick team. The time just basically ran out, and I just couldn't get Zoro to come in quick enough. So that's why I decided to put Zoro as the first bench slot. As this Dex team, it can tank for days. You have so much defense, as well as a lot of HP and a lot of guard. Guard's a very underrated ability. Even with that massive shot from a Kainu, it just triggers Rayleigh. Rayleigh gives us a whole bunch of defense, gives us a whole bunch of guard, and then with Kaido coming in, doing all that damage, we can actually tank it. We can tank the fixed damage as well. The quick team doesn't have too much fixed damage going for it, which actually helps out significantly, as you can do stuff like this. And once Corazon gets his heal off, he can heal us back up, as well as like give us 7 defense for most of our units, as he does go into the center to heal. Once that happens, we can just stall out a little bit more until that 50-second mark. And then ideally around this particular time, after we've had our Frankie special pop off, we really want some of our units to start dying. Either the Frankie or the Cavendish are usually the best shout. You ideally want them to die. Even Corazon, you could probably say goodbye to Corazon at this point. He's done most of his job. He was just here for his passive mainly. But once we do lose one of these front-running units, it gets very, very scary for the enemy. Once Zoro and Sobermask come in, no matter which one it is, and if they manage to get their special, it just means that they can do so much damage to the opposition team with the extra attacks. If Zoro pops his special off in the last 30 seconds, which I think you actually see in this particular fight, it works really, really well. The downside to Dex is you're always relying on that RNG for characters to die, and there are going to be chances where Corazon actually comes in before you actually lose a character. I think I got quite fairly lucky here, and my Frankie actually got hit by Kaido. So you see how Frankie's just got like the tiniest bit of HP, but Whitebeard just managed to hit him. Whitebeard only did like 145 damage, but it was just enough to take out Frankie, and it's exactly what we needed. As soon as Frankie dies, we get Zoro coming in. We're in the last 30 seconds, and as soon as Zoro gets a chance to attack, even like if he like gets the heal from Corazon, he can get defense from Corazon, he can tank the shots from Kaido and whatnot, and then he comes in with his Onigiri and he just absolutely decimates everything. And that's the Dex team with Corazon. So it works fairly well, and especially as the defensive team, you can spring a lot of people that think they've got you pegged, and it works ridiculously well. But as an attacking team, not so much. Alright, so on to the next comp, we are using, like, the 2 free-to-play units. So we've got Bardo and we've got Komurasaki now. I actually prefer running this particular setup. If you are looking for an attacking setup for Dex, I do think this works just a little bit nicer. Mainly because Corazon's heal is just so damn strong that if you get off that heal consistently, it's very hard for Zora to actually come in and function the way that you need Zora to function. But as you can see, this team has no attack up whatsoever, but the amount of defense and HP definitely makes up for that. We have like 10 defense and then 15 HP. The fact that we can't have our HP reduced by enemies' effects just works so damn well. Now, I don't think this slasher team is like maxed or anything like that, but this was the slasher meta team for a very long time, and this Dex team just had no issues whatsoever getting through it. Like, absolutely no issues whatsoever. Komurasaki's giving quite a lot of defense. She can do a lot of damage, and we actually got fairly lucky there of her taking out Odin. So we don't even have to worry about Odin's big Paradise Waterfall shot that normally just like absolutely decimates teams. We lose a lot of attack when we come up against Roger, but the way that this team like particularly functions is it doesn't really matter how much attack we lose, as long as we do end up losing like Komurasaki or Cavendish or Bardo somewhere around the 50-second mark, we're going to be in good stead, as most of their attack down reducers are going to be dealt with, and we just sort of start picking them off slowly as they don't have an option for healing or have any way of building their defense back up. As soon as Rayleigh's passive pops as well, as you can see, we're sitting at like 20 defense. Rayleigh's then going to get his special off, which puts us up to around 26 defense, as well as 10 guard. That's something else to note. Guards are quite an underrated ability. It is still RNG, but once it pops off, it does so much work. And then, as you can see, we're just slowly chipping away at the enemy. The slasher team is sort of built around the front 5, and with the Dex team having so much defense, they can just barely touch them, which it's just absolutely phenomenal to see. So if you're looking for a Dex team to run as an attacking team, I do think this is a little bit of a better setup than Corazon, but let's move on to Quick now. Alright, so moving on to the big dog Quick teams. Now, Quick, in my opinion, is the top of Rumble as of July 2021. Things do change a little bit, but obviously it does have its weaknesses. Quick is very easily nerfed by characters like Corazon, like Magellan, like the PvP Frankie. The Dex team runs the nicest against this particular setup, but there is ways to make this team strong enough to just make the Dex team absolutely redundant. It has a lot of defense down, has a lot of nerfing, and has a lot of damage output. So with this first team that I have built, I actually was doing Rumble where King was boosted. So King was actually getting a little bit more cooldown, like his cost was a lot less. So I actually managed to have Whitebeard on the bench, but just for the purpose of this particular team, I did want to showcase King. This King, Kazuna King, is actually a really good option, or it might have been Queen that had reduced cost. Either way, you managed to have another 20 cost to put Whitebeard on the bench, but Whitebeard is a much better option for nuking and whatnot. But you do have the option of King, and you do have actually the option of Ivankov as well. Ivankov is a really, really good free-to-play unit, as well as Bellamy. And that's the beautiful thing about Quick. They've got a lot of really good free-to-play options. You've also got like something like Rumble Lucy. You've also got Pirate Rumble Stussy. So the Quick team has a lot of options. But this particular first team is built around speed, with Kuzan in the front giving 10 extra speed. It just works so nicely. But the team that I prefer to run is actually this one here. Now, I have actually changed this. This is my main PvP team. I have actually changed it a little bit. I've actually running Law. When I first recorded this video, I didn't actually have Law. But if you guys have Law, make sure to slap Law in there instead of Kaku. He just does what Kaku does, just a little bit better. But as mentioned, the Quick team, it doesn't have too many issues taking down most teams. Mirror matches you can get bad RNG. Obviously, bench becomes a lot more prevalent in that situation. But characters like Whitebeard just flourish so well. And when you can flourish those nukers like Sobermask on the Dex team and like Whitebeard on the Quick team, it just works so damn well. Obviously, the Quick team is sort of built up around 2 main units. You do have Kaido and you do have a Kainu. They are very, very good. But the main character that I like to make note of on this team is Tessero. So Tessero is a really, really good option. He gives special cooldown. So that way you can actually pop off your specials just a little bit quicker. But if you do want to attack a little bit quicker, Kuzan is another really, really good option. V3 Kuzan has a very, very good passive for strength decks and quick characters. So he can find a spot on like some rainbow teams and whatnot as well. But that's enough about that. Let's hop into some fights. Alright, so the first team we're using is the Kuzan comp. Now, Kuzan's comp is just built around speed, which works really, really nicely, and it is a really good option, but I would highly recommend using Kuzan in the front and not on the bench like most people do. You just have a lot of better bench options. But the downside to Kuzan is he's not actually getting boosted by Bellamy. So if you want to, you can easily run Ivankov in the front and then replace Bellamy. That way you can run like Whitebeard and King as your nukers. But I did manage to find a bit of a mirror match here. They are using Tessero, and it is a fairly decent quick team. It's not exactly leveled up as like to its highest potential, but it wasn't a slouch or anything like that. This guy is using Stussy in the front. As I mentioned, Stussy is another really good option for the quick team. I'm not a huge fan of Stussy myself. I just don't think very similar to Konus. Like, what they do on paper is really nice, but then in practicality, it just doesn't seem to work that well. But if you are using Stussy, make sure to put her in the middle slot, very similar to what I'm doing with Bellamy, because you just kind of want them to die. Like, they come in, they do their job, after that, see you later, make room for someone else who's going to provide a little bit more to your team. So if you are using Stussy, I would highly recommend putting her in the middle. That way she can take most of the shots, because after the first 30 seconds, she doesn't really do too much after that. But as you can see, we've got, like, 20 speed on our Kaido. All of our quick units are around 10 speed, which is nice. We've got a lot of attack with 15 attack as well as 15 HP. And the quick team just has so much defense down, nuking as well as HP cutting with Bellamy, and then a lot of defense with Queen and Kaido and Akane just putting so much damage that it just works so nicely. And some of these matches just, like, the opposition just does not even stand a chance. They're not as fast as the OG Slashers once were, but the safety net that you have when you're running quick and the options that you guys have just makes this team so much fun to use and so viable within the meta at the moment. But let's move on to my personal team now. Alright, so moving on to my quick team now, we are using the Tessero comp as well as the very, very strong, or the perfect bench as I like to call it, with Whitebeard, Soba Mask, and Kaku. Ideally, if you have Pirate Rumble Law, I would definitely slide Pirate Rumble Law in there. He just does what Kaku does, but just a little bit nicer. But the synergy that this team has, take away that 3 attack because that's sort of what's boosted at the moment. But with, like, your 8 defense that we should have, as well as 15 HP, the quick team just, like, it's just ridiculous what it can do. So I did manage to find a slasher team. It wasn't exactly the meta slasher team, as it's not using it's not using Wano Law, but it does have Halloween Law. Now, Halloween Law is a really, really good option for most, like, slasher teams and whatnot, mainly because he can special blind, and I find that he works amazingly for actually nerfing the Dex team. He just nerfs the Dex team so drastically, but the beautiful thing about Kaido on the quick team is he actually can't be special blinded. So when you do come up against characters like Halloween Law, it's not overly scary, as you always know your Kaido is going to be fine, even though he does a lot of damage and he can be quite a scary unit to come up against Halloween Law. Kaido's just like, nah dude, I don't even care. I'm going to get my special off, and I'm going to use it against you, and everything is going to die. With the support that Akane has with that HP cut, as well as all that damage, it just means Kaido can come in, and with the amount of range Kaido has, he can just do stuff like that. And just, when it comes to the Slasher team, like, coming towards that 50 seconds, they just have a lot of HP, and this quick team really doesn't struggle against much. The side team can put up a fight against it. Obviously, mirror matches do really, really well. If you do come up against some really high-end Dex teams, some of the times you will be stalled out, because the damage output that Quick has is not super reliable, provided the enemy has super high defense up, or has a way to continuously build their defense like the Dex team has. The beautiful thing about the Quick team is they can nerf defense heavily, but with the Dex team just getting so much defense, it does struggle just a little bit. But that was my personal team. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let's move on to Sai now. Alright, so moving on to Sai. Now, Sai is personally my favorite color in the game, and I actually really, really enjoy running the Sai team. Now, the Sai team works best against Slashers, and the beautiful thing about that is Slashers actually find a place in a lot of teams. On the strength team, as you guys saw, there is a lot of very good Slashers like Odin and Pirate Rumble Law, so the Sai team can actually put up a fair, decent fight. It's very, very good at nerfing in teams with the likes of Aokiji and Germa. It does very, very well against Dex, as it has a lot of fixed damage, as well as HP cutting as well. It can nerf defense with Rebecca Toy Soldier, so it does really, really well there. Plus, it has a lot of options. So this is the first team that I have put together. It utilizes Aokiji and Boa. What you can actually do with the side team too is you can easily slide on some phenomenal Rumble units like Kaido. You can easily put Kaido on this team instead of Boa, and that way you can run like a quick sort of hybrid team, which works really, really well. You got Kolgar and Nolan, who's a great Pyro Rumble unit. Whitebeard's an amazing Pyro Rumble unit if you are running that quick team. And then Sobermusk is just like the best nuker in the entire game. Like, he's just so damn strong. But the beautiful thing about this team is it has a lot of defense, and the way Boa sort of functions, she gives defense if she takes damage, which can actually work in your favor if you're coming up against a lot of defense reducers. But Aokiji and Boa are one option. The other option, which I do prefer to run, is this one here, where you do have Wano Law and you have Germa. Now, Wano Law and Germa are really, really good because Wano Law is great at nerfing stuff like Powerhouse and Driven units. And then you've got massive fixed damage with the Germa 66, as well as their ability to paralyze as well, which can be a little bit nice. It is RNG based, but the main core to the slasher teams at the moment is obviously Enel and Rebecca Toy Soldier. They're just phenomenal at destroying slashers, but Roger is a very, very good unit that sort of slides under the radar as he's sort of most known on slasher teams, but he's a rainbow unit. His nerfing capabilities are insane. The 2000 fixed damage is nothing to shrug at, and the fact that you have a lot of fixed damage, especially with this particular team with Roger, Law, and Germa, it just helps out when you're coming up against those really tanky teams. It just puts decks to shame, and it actually can put up a fight against a lot of really good teams. So with that said, let's test these teams and let's do some fights. Alright, so the first team is utilizing Aokiji and Boa. So I had to come up against an int team. I just had to do it. So I managed to find the Halloween Slashers Blackbeard, which is a bit of a weird one. And then Jozu and V1 Dofi. Now, if this int team had something like Katakuri on it instead of Blackbeard, it would function a lot nicer, especially against my particular team, as Katakuri is really, really good at nerfing the Sai team. The combination of Katakuri and Konus I did find to be the best two to sort of try and take down the Sai team, but the amount of synergy the Sai team has, it doesn't really struggle too much, to be honest. Katakuri is probably like the best unit to use against them. But running ints, I found that int sort of dropped off significantly, and with the resurgence of Sai, it's really pushed them quite low. I actually had them higher than Dex in my tier list, as well as the Rainbow team, but after using them, and we will talk about that when I get up to them in the next part of the video, but after using them, they just don't function like they used to. With the amount of defense down that most units have, with Halloween Law and Dofi, as well as Halloween Shanks being their main units, they just get nerfed drastically by Rebecca Toy Soldier, as they are all slashers. And that's another reason why the Sai team works so well. As I mentioned, there are a lot of really good slashers that pop up in all of the color variations. You've got Halloween Shanks, Halloween Law, and Int. You've got Roger in the Sai team. You've got the Rumble Law and the Sweet 3 and Odin in Strength. And then Quick's actually probably the only one that doesn't have slashes, but later on they get stuff like Shiryu and whatnot, and then Rebecca Toy Soldier just gets infinitely better the more slashes that get added to the meta. So this particular team works really, really well with the fixed damage, the defense reduction, the cooldown reduction, with the amount of attack we have, Enel popping his special off every 4 seconds, giving us defense, giving us speed. This team it tears through the competition, and it does it fairly well. In saying that, though, I have come up against slasher teams and actually lost, mainly with a Pirate Rumble Law in the front. Pirate Rumble Law seems to do really, really well against the Sai team. So I am interested to see how the Strength team, and once again, shout out to Jin. I have seen some screenshots where he takes down Shirahoshi comps and whatnot. And Shirahoshi is actually another really good unit to use on this Sai team that I haven't actually spoken about. So apologies about that. Alright, so moving on to the next side team. This is the side team that I actually stereotypically like to run quite a bit, but you can easily chop and change, and that goes for all of these teams as well. You can easily chop and change. If you're missing something like Lord, you can easily put Boa on this team, or if you're missing something like Germa, you can easily put Aokiji on the team. The beautiful thing about Sai is they do have a lot of good options. They do struggle for rare recruit options, however. You do have Viola, who's pretty good. You have Crocus, who can see some play. But another legend that I actually totally forgot to mention is actually Shirahoshi. V1 Shirahoshi is a really, really good unit, and you probably saw her pop up in the initial Japan sort of structure. She is a phenomenal unit, but I mainly find that she works great on defensive teams. She can give a full heal if you get her below 50% with her 21 recovery stat, as well as give attack and defense to your team. And if you manage to get that full heal off, as well as the attack buff and the defense buff, it just puts you in such a nice position. When you are fighting the enemy and you're looking at their HP that's diminished drastically, and then you've got your HP that's max, you've got all this defense, you've got all this attack, it just works really, really well. But I find that when I'm attacking, I don't like to rely on things like that. For defense and whatnot, it works great because you can bait people in and they think that, oh, yeah, I've beaten this team before, but then your Shirihoshi gets the good RNG. You manage to get a lot of healing off, a lot of defense, a lot of attack. There's Germa doing that 2500 fixed damage, which is just phenomenal. Even with Pyre Rumble lore on this particular team, like, it's just like, yeah, nah, sorry, bruh. Sorry, mate, we're tearing through your HP. Even taking the special as well. But the beautiful thing about Sai is it has a way to continuously regenerate its defense with Enel's special, and being on such a low cooldown, you can actually get that defense quite drastically. So when you do come up against teams that like to nerf defense, you're not really struggling too much. And even against a very, like, this slasher team was actually really, really well built. A lot of really good firepower on the bench as well, but Sai just does wonders against slashers, and even against some of the best slasher teams, it can just decimate them, but it can go either way with bad RNG. So let's move on to the int team and the final part of the video. And the final color is int. So int for me was honestly the most disappointing. Now, int once upon a time ruled the roost. It was so damn powerful and so hard to beat because it had so much defense. And then when the Halloween slashes came out, it just got even stronger. And don't get me wrong, it is gonna have a resurgence on JP once like Moria and stuff come out and Blackbeard V3. But like, for me, trying to make these teams like function against some of the meta teams and stuff like that, it was a real struggle. But the combination of Halloween lore, the combination of Halloween Shanks is still very good. They still have access to V1 Dofi, who's one of the best Rumble units in the entire game. Jozu's a phenomenal PvP unit, as well as Katakuri being great as well. So this is the first team. I was trying stuff with Blackbeard and stuff, but Blackbeard has just become redundant, honestly. In Rumble, I wouldn't even recommend using him if you're running an in-team. He is a very good damage dealer, but like, if you don't have the Halloween slashes or Katakuri, like, just don't even worry about it, to be honest. It's very hard to get this team to function. What Int does have is they do have Rare Recruit Enel. This Rare Recruit Enel is so damn good, and if you're looking for a good nuker, this guy can easily find his way onto any team. You always put him in like the second last spot, so that way you can get off his passive, and he has an amazing special giving guard and defense up to Rainbow, so he'll give it to even if you're not running int units. It works really, really well. The next team I have included is actually the Crit Slasher team. Now, this team is not great, honestly, but I just really wanted to include it. I wanted to show off like ores and stuff like that, and it is a lot of fun utilizing something like Halloween Mihawk, but in saying that, it's just not where it needs to be, and against obviously the side team, it gets crushed. It can put up a fight against the Dex team. I did find it sort of got absolutely decimated by someone like a strength team, and Quick team just absolutely eats it for breakfast. But that's enough about that. Let's hop into the fights now and let's see how it goes. Alright, so for the first fight, this is the int team that I would recommend most people use if you are actually using int. The combination of Halloween lore and Halloween Shanks is amazing, and then you do have the synergy with Dofi giving Slashes buff as well as Driven, so Katakuri being such a fantastic Rumble unit as well. I would really, really recommend including Katakuri if you are running an int team. But as I mentioned, if you are sort of missing some of these high-end legends, it does make it really hard to actually build the int team, as it doesn't really have that many options. You do obviously have Blackbeard, you do have Conus, and there are some options, but with the depth that most teams need now, running like 8-man teams and stuff, the downside to using something like Enel is you got to be careful with your placement, but you also want him to come in because he's just such a phenomenal unit as well. So I find the first spot on the bench is usually the best spot for him, and then having something like Jozu in the middle just to do what Jozu does, and then again just let him die, and then you can get the amazing passive of Enel as well as the amazing special as well. So I did manage to find a side team. It's not a max side team, and it doesn't have perfect synergy, as it does have Shank's crew, who isn't actually a side unit. But I did want to give this team some cred where it's due, because the in team is still good. It's just, it's not what it used to be, and it has dropped off like massively in my opinion. But when you do get Halloween Shanks and Halloween lore popping off consecutively, getting the special blind, getting the action blind, even with us losing all of our attack, we do have the fixed damage from Katakuri, we do have the way to replenish our defense with our Dofi unit, and even if we do take shots like that from Whitebeard where we lose our units, we can easily get Enel coming in, giving some more defense where it's needed, and if we can get Enel's special as well, he's actually going to give us even more defense. I would highly recommend having some sort of nuker in the back though. For this particular setup, I did use Sober Mask. I do think Sober Mask is like the best bench unit you can use, probably next to PvP Whitebeard. But you do have the options of obviously Rumble Law, and you have Rumble Kaku. All of those guys just in the back are just going to provide you with that little bit more depth in case the fight goes the distance. But having Rare Recruit Enel there, I can't stress that enough, is actually one of the best options to have on your bench if you aren't using him in the front lines. But try and have as much depth as possible, especially for the in-team. Alright, so for the final fight of the video, we're using the Crit Slasher team, and the way this team sort of operates is you really need Ors, and then obviously Halloween Mihawk for most of your damage. You do have Halloween Law and Halloween Shanks. Put them in the first and the last spot. They're very squishy, so you want to make sure that they're protected. But I did manage to find a strength team, which was actually really cool. I don't seem to see too many strength defensive team, but in saying that, it is definitely not the best strength team going around. The fact they're using Luffy Sanji is a bit of a yikes. You got to remember, dual units don't classify as colors, so if you are running these types of teams, just be mindful, even though Luffy is a strength unit, he's technically not because he's a dual unit. So with this particular setup, it is kind of cool. Once this team works, it actually works fairly well, but it is still very finicky and does rely on you getting critical hits. With Ors and with Dofi, though, you have a lot of crit chance, and I think at one point you'll actually see us get up around 20 crit chance. We are managed to hit the 15 times now, and every time that we do hit a crit, you can easily get like attack up with Mihawk and stuff. Another really good option for this particular setup is actually V2 Shanks over Halloween Shanks. So if you are missing Halloween Shanks, you can use V2 Shanks, so he gives even more crit damage or crit chance, which will then help your Mihawk as well as the other units. But I do find that Halloween Shanks just does a lot of damage, and with the combination of Law, as you can see, we can easily take out those units and then just let our boy Mihawk do the rest. But that's going to wrap up today's video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to go down there and belt the like button for me. And if you're new to the channel, you're enjoying the OPTC content, hit the big red subscribe button too. But guys, wherever you are in this beautiful world, please remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, I thank you for watching, and I'll catch you, homies, in the next one. Lights!